language is the problem of the coder, which has always analyzed PHP and other solution, and more what could be in our vision in terms of powerful of those no-code solution for smaller and big company. Because here today I see a lot of solution for SME and something like that. But although there is big companies, I know that it's a shame sometimes. But
I think that there are a lot of editors who are very happy.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But I can assure you, after one day here, that we don't have the same vision, and it's a pity because you have so great vision. You're going with those no-code solution very quickly. And if I explain after 5 years of what I did in no-code in Allianz Group, it's not so quick than what I see here.
Okay, so Allianz is a very big company, obviously. So we'll have this. We didn't agree. So when they sent the slides to Vincent, he said, "I don't agree with everything you said." So okay, let's go. Let's talk. So we are not agreeing on the slides, and you will see why. So the first thing again, you can see it's now more than ever. It's important to help any possibility, and I'm a Russian. So first of all, I must confess, I already did that. I would really like coding. It's something that I did since almost 10 years old. I did 3D engines, I was telco switches, I did ERPs, e-commerce, I did a lot of things like that. I founded around digital 400 developers, digital agencies, so full of developers. And now I'm fed up with development. That's why I'm doing the same building project for others, but with no code and no code tools mostly. You can select which one. And again, free consulting on our booth. It's simple to spot everything that throws. You can ask, grab, and ask questions about anything. I think we can help. So one of the things we can ask now, we have so many legitimate questions we can ask, and every IT director and every company like Allianz would ask, will this tool be alive in 5 years? That's normal. How the pricing will change over time, or where this tool is heading. It's important to see where they will be in 5 years. Again, will I be blocked? I start a project with, let's say, WeWeb or Convertigo. If I'm blocked, will I be?
This is a big question in our companies because will be alive in 5 years. So that I'm fighting since 5 years with my IT directors to say that the question of vendor locking. That is a question in Nocode. The thing is that it's not a so important question because even in a big solution, you cannot know if in 5 years it will be changed or in terms of IT architecture, in terms of security. So it's a real question, and very important for big companies, but who knows?
Yeah. So we'll try to see the future. That's important. With help of our knowledge of things, we analyzed actually the roadmaps and the feature requests and the community forums of some of the tools. Obviously, not all of them, but some of them because they all copy each other. So when you see the big ones, you will show that the others will follow. So the first thing is we will see 4 different tools, and I classify that the marketing ones, the marketing space, and the internal ones. So the first is marketing space. Let's take an example of Webflow. So Webflow, as they describe themselves, create, collaborate, and scale beautiful websites in a completely visual terms. We had that Dreamweaver. Okay. But then they are very good for corporate website landings, product pages, and any website with less than 500 pages is quite good for them. And they do not provide backend features. It has some CMS, but it's not real backend. But if you see on the side of this, are they big enough? Well, they have 3.5 million of users. That's a lot. They have 10 years of existence, and they have 300 million in funding. That doesn't mean anything today, but anyway. So they're here to stay. They will not disappear tomorrow. Okay to invest in them and use them, etc. And they're being used by Dell, Upwork, or GetAround, some quite big companies licensed, not enterprise yet, but big companies. So where they're heading? So one of the biggest features they are being releasing now is membership. So the idea is management of subscribers and memberships. It's a very important move for them because today they're getting their money from guys who are building the websites and they have a subscription model. But now they will be getting money from the money those guys will be making. So for example, if you have a Substack or a Gumroad account, you will reverse some part of this money to them if you run your content through Webflow. It's an important step. And if you have an OnlyFans account, the same. So what does it say to us about where they're heading? So obviously it's not enterprise, because if they're stuff in membership, it doesn't interest Allianz or Sony or Coca-Cola. So they are probably growing in the SMB market, going on other verticals in the same horizontal market. The second thing, well, they had to do that. It was the most requested feature, the logic. Well, actually starting to doing what everybody else does. Workflow stuff, if this, then that. They implemented this in a visual way, as usual. So they start to be very good for CRMs, forms, some kind of basic API integration. So definitely they are attacking their neighborhood, which is Bubble or WeWeb. They say, oh, we can do APIs now. Will it work in enterprise world? Definitely not. So if we go now in the forums and the community part of this thing, so the most wanted features are here, GDPR, obviously, because if you are doing logic, if you start to host forms and you start to host data, you will have to comply. The second is multi-language support. That's tremendous. It's very stupid that they do not support real multilingual websites. So if they want to go international, so this is probably their strategy. If their community wants that, it's probably that they will implement that. That means that they still don't want to grow vertically, but horizontally, and taking all the world of this medium-sized company. Webflow University certification, some agencies want to be better than others. It's natural behavior of apes. Component marketplace. This is again something that is absolutely necessary because moving your CSS and stuff and buttons and it's not very no-code style. So if you want to optimize that, I want to buy a component that does, for example, I don't know, pricing. And I have this beautiful pricing stuff with everything I can think. And again, community and ecosystems and things, how they will grow. And they're all fighting to get in. Imagine how lucky you are. So faceted navigation is certainly why they don't have that, but yet even if you have hundreds of pages, you can have up to 10,000 pages.
C'est fou là.
Oui, on a remarqué.
Vous venez de démarrer, on est d'accord, c'est
Oui.
7h15 là.
Oui, c'est ça, on a démarré.
Okay.
Sorry. So faceted search or real, we should have taken a bigger place. So some prediction. Again, it's all on my opinion. So I'm probably not 100% sure, but let's say community will become a strong drive for future growth through Flow. They cannot do all the features. They start to do membership and logic. This is probably the maximum they can pull out. They need to set up a marketplace and plugin system like did Shopify, Magento, Drupal, WordPress, everybody. So they will do most of the same thing, but they don't have a community yet. It's not like Bubble. Their community is extremely strong. They don't have that, so they have to set up it. It will take a lot of time. They will become more international and crossing this chasm of localization. It's a complicated issue. Localization is like authentication or authorization. It's not that easy. It's not just translate. It's a lot of things that you have to implement. And they will probably become more flexible with better integration of infrastructure. We see this with logic. It means API integration. Where they will probably have some plugins with e-commerce to pull the information of product inside them. This is something absolutely normal. And finally, the Webflow will probably dominate this place and slowly eating WordPress. I think this is WordPress is the biggest pie you want to eat, and everybody wants to eat it, but nobody succeeded so far. WordPress is here since many, many years. Everybody says it's shitty, but it's half of the web. So I think they have a good opportunity.
This is what is interesting that the four tips that you see here exactly what our IT and also business can see when they choose local or local solution. First of all, the community are the one to accelerate and not to create always all the things. So if they have like system of payment or system of identification of people, which is only belong, it could be very interesting. And the community is also here to help company like us to grow. The second point is that international. For example, in Alliance we are like 46 countries. So when you choose technology, not a technology, a solution, you have to be sure that it will be like in the US, in France, or in other countries also, and not just and for infrastructure, the question is big because you have security, because you have governance, which is like a big point when you choose and you want to introduce Nocode. Since today we are fighting with the IT to explain that even it's a low-code or no-code solution, it don't say that it's less secure or less reliable.
So the last question, who could buy them? Because this is a very recurring question. Figma, just the last example, or many other, MailChimp, very successful company, acquired. So I think that it's not AWS, Google, or Azure. I think Adobe could acquire them because it's making perfect sense to connect Webflow with Figma and you're done. The second, Intuit, I've already talked about that, but Intuit is the guys behind MailChimp and QuickBooks, and they're very, very big company, very powerful in the SMB market. So because they are addressing the same kind of clients, QuickBooks and Webflow, I think that it makes perfect sense. They have MailChimp, they have QuickBooks, they manage the finance, they manage the marketing, and now they have to manage the front end, the websites. And HubSpot, why not? HubSpot is smaller than the others, but they do a lot of things to grow out of their basic CRM database. So they will need to create forms and pages and websites. So why not using them? WeWeb, it's the total opposite of the Webflow. They have only 3 years of existence and 3 million of funding. Yet I find that WeWeb is way more powerful now than Webflow is. Because they have dynamic website support, they have web application that can be built, small shops even, and they are API and database driven, so you can connect to many databases. They're still young, means a lot of risks. They can disappear tomorrow, yes, but today I think they're quite good alternative to Webflow. So what they are working on, I think in many things, and raising money would be their most important occupation now. But anyway, NPM libraries, that's a small feature that tells a lot about where they're hitting. That means they let the users integrate NPM JavaScript libraries inside their code. That's a fucking powerful thing because you actually can do whatever you want. Because if you have millions of NPM libraries, millions of features that they don't have to code themselves, support them and implement them. Let the users do. That's a very smart move, I think. In terms of security, grids. Okay, that's mandatory feature. I don't know why you guys didn't do it yet. OpenID. That means that they are working now on the connection to SSO. Start to talk to big companies. Catching on Webflow. Well, that's an easy one. They basically start to try to copy because they have a lot of features that inside their feature that a la Webflow. That means that they are looking at what Webflow does and catching up on the features. Partnerships, I think that's again, they cannot grow without having agencies and integrators with them. That's why they are now talking to all the agencies to start to create a certification program, training program, and reseller programs. Yes.
The last point that you say is also a pain point to introduce low-code in our company, for example, because as we talk about no-coder or low-coder, maybe all around the world it's not a problem. In France, it's a big problem because, for example, we use Mendix in Alliance, and if I see in the market of people who are Mendix low code in France, it's like almost maybe 1,000 people, or it's a very big. But there is no school here and no community, no big community, and it's a big problem. So when we comparing also the solution where will survive in a few years, it depends also of like I can say developers who will do and be in those companies to achieve projects.
Yeah. So the community. So my prediction again, my personal point of view, I think they will be doubling its user base within a year. That's not that complicated concerning the size. They will probably go enterprise market. I have this feeling because this SMB is entirely occupied by Webflow. I think that because they also provide services, they can build your website with their technology. That's a sign to see that probably they're heading to the enterprise market, and it's a good sign. And we'll see why in the future. They will launch agency fuel indirect sales program to achieve that. And finally, probably they will be acquired because raising capital in the future few years will be complicated. But I think there might be some surprises. Google bet the same because basically it's the same. So now we're gonna take another two examples of internal apps builders. So this is the first one was to build the shiny websites and pink color. Probably. So what we call internal apps, because it's a very vague term. So we have this survey of around 19,000 people to what is internal apps. So it's basically dashboards providing. So just avoid talking to your boss. You just send him the dashboard. Admin panels is control and admin some microservices. So you don't want to talk to your developers. You have your admin panels. You have data entry or mapping. This is a classical issue. I have a database. I want to fill data inside. Customer support apps. It's kind of I don't want to talk to my customers. You have the app for that. And resource, and then you have transaction resource approval and all. So dashboard, admin panels, configuring something. So basically, when we want to avoid talking to people, we create apps.
And this is, in our days, this is 90% of the application that we are developing in Alliance are internal build. It's not like for customers now, because it's so sensitive in terms of security and data. So internal app, it's 90% of our projects in low-code and no-code are like for internal needs.
And we see that in evaluation too. We'll see how. So how do you build internal apps? Custom built solutions, 63%. This is our total addressable market. This is how this will be zero within 5 years. Spreadsheets, okay, 40%. So 93% are using either spreadsheets or custom built. And now only 30% local no-code platforms. Visualization tools and BI for me is more or less the same. And back in admin memory. So there is a lot of rooms here to grow, to cover all that. And what person of enjoying? So we asked about feelings, what you guys feel about doing that. So the most cool from developers, this is a survey for developers. So it's not guys, citizen makers, developers. They enjoy the most using local node. So they will not die, they will just embrace it. You asked me last time, what we're going to do with the 300 developers we have. Well, it seems like you can keep them.
But in another way, my experience with people, I talk a lot to full stack developers. As I speak about low-code, the first reaction is like, it's not my job, like I'm a full stack developer, I'm not like a citizen one. So to convince a low-code, like a full stack developer to become a low-code developer, the first step is like a little hard, but when you try to understand and is a little aware about the world, after like maybe 1 month, is like totally convinced. I was a full stack one, and now I'm just like a local developer because I love it.
So basically, it says the same. The guys who are using the way those two slides are connected. But anyway, so basically we see change here. They want to change. They wanna change and they want to build this. They want to build using low code Nocode. So Bubble. Probably everybody heard about that. This is the most important, the oldest, Jesus Christ of Nocode. Okay, the marketplace, social networks, everything, and they have like their very strong community of bubblers, and they do bubbles, and they have 2 million of users. It's a huge project. And they have 10 years of existence, 100 million of founding, and around, I estimate, like 500 million of valuation. Yes, but it's nothing compared to Webflow. It's nothing compared to Retool. They do in terms of features 10 times more than does Retool. Yet they're evaluated 8 times less, 6 times less. We'll see why. So what they are working on, training and education. And actually when you see this constant release of their notebook, because every month they publish what they did, what you see is we are working on performance issue, we are working on performance issue, we are working on performance issue, and the responsive design system. They are trying to catching up with their growth and their technical debt, because they don't provide responsive functionality because they're 10 years old. It's a problem. Training and education, it's an important thing for them. Responsive design engine, they've been working on that a long. And this is a problem because they have so many users and so many legacy. Every new change, major change in the usage, like responsive now is a thing, or headless is a thing. It's always very complicated for this big platform to pivot because they have a lot of installed application. So everything is SOC 2 in compliance, security, version control, and agency relationship. They was very reluctant for agency. They didn't like agency at all. They said, we have citizen developers. Now they roll back. We need agencies.
This is like the point that I really glad that I see what was presented to me. It's like, okay, we can ask about like which is a bubble or Webflow, which will be there in 5 years, but it's I'm convinced here, since like I speak to all the people here, that the agencies have like a very big responsibility to which solution will be the best, because actually when you are like a big company like that also, you don't have internal people who can like choose those, and we are searching companies and searching agencies who can like follow us and help us to choose the right one. In terms of like no code, I know here there's always here was in the door who try to really have good services to explain, to make evangelism about the solution, but there is not a lot in our way.
So what will happen? I think that Bubble will experience no growth in large companies because they have this internal database and stuff, and their space is actually the level of experience, developer experience you have, or user experience with Bubble is very similar to what OutSystems or Mendix or PowerUps propose. So it will be very complicated for Bubble to enter this big enterprise. So I think they will have no growth, even if they will continue to grow in the SME space. Templates, I think templates of ready-to-use application will be dominant way for good application. It's because this is the next step. The next step after no code is I have almost ready app to use, I can configure, rather than building an app button after button, because it takes a lot of time to build a big app.
And there is a subject about templates where in the low code, if I can also give the experience in Mendix, what they are doing since like few months, it's creating templates, but in terms of business. I mean in terms of finance, insurance, you have like multiple templates which are like very close to our real job. And when we see that, it's better because we don't have to recreate all, and it's generally because they are inside their companies, low-code companies, specialists in insurance, in finance, so they can talk to the business, and they also can talk to the IT.
I think the Bubble will finally make peace with agencies. understand that we are valuable assets for them in terms of penetration of the market. But I think Bubble will still struggle with performance and support because having a lot of SMB clients, that means a lot of support and they don't pay you for that. It's okay to have an H24 support dedicated to for Allianz because they are throwing at you millions a year. But it's very different to have an H24 support with Joe, who is a barber, and who calls you, it didn't work, and you have to answer them. This is a very complicated mitigation they will have to do. And the performance, again, because you let everybody using your tool, and your tool is quite complex, and with a lot of complexities inside, there will be performance issues that will be quite complicated to solve. And final one, to be honest, it's my favorite one. Retool. I think they are doing the exact thing the market needs. They have no backend. They are extremely good for creating admin panels, dashboards, internal tools. They are very easy to use, and they are used by, gosh, a lot of companies. Amazon is using them, Rakuten is using, Bondoux is using them. Many companies. So they are already in the enterprise market because they're building internal tools. No barber using internal tools. So they have 500,000 apps, 5 years of business, 140 million of funding, and they have a 3.2 billion valuation. They have no backend, they have no community, and they are way more valuable. Why? Because they are inside this market. This is a market where they get selected. So they are here to stay, I think, for a long time. And what they are working on, the most important thing for them, it's the mobile app support. That's something new. They was using web apps. You were building web apps connected with queries to the backend systems. That's it. Now they are building mobile apps, native mobile apps. Killing Flutterflow, killing Drift bits, and many others who are trying building apps. And I think that they will be quite successful. The most important, what they most wanted features, better styling of components. This is something that was really painful in Retool. You cannot change the way your components do. It's internal tools, comprehensive, you don't really need that, but this is something that is really asked by the community. So have this web style inside Retool. Versioning, we're working a lot with versioning, how to roll back, how I control the version, how can merges of features and stuff. Components marketplace, again, this is something that's really asking for by the community. How can I sell or reuse or publish? They started to do that with their query and components library internal to yourself. So you have your owner marketplace inside your organization. The next step would be to publish it externally. And the tables, they have like half of the ticket about the tables. Tables are the most painful element in the world of developers. They have cache, CDNs, and probably a parallel computing of multi-threading, and the third one is tables. Tables is very hard because you can sort, you can paginate, you can edit cells. It's a very complicated element of it. And finally, more components. They are adding a lot of components like audio recorder, signature, QR code scanners, and stuff like that. Nothing very exciting, actually, by the way. It's all this like very small features. They are not making a revolution. So what they all gonna do? Well, they will jumpstart their community for sure to have this components marketplace. I think they could provide some ETL capabilities because today they say I connect to any database or to any APIs. Okay, but at some point, when your API doesn't provide you the exact format you want, and your components is not connecting naturally to your database, you will have to write some code. And at that point, if you have to write code, so they will have to provide some ETL, maybe through acquisition. I don't know. They will obviously invest heavily in the mobile application support, which again is a rabbit hole because when you say mobile, you want to say offline support, for example. And offline data synchronization is a big chunk of problems. And retool will become more and more developer friendly. Developer experience is the most important thing to succeed in this space. Look why a very small company, startup, completely destroyed all the payment gateway Stripe just because of the developer experience. So the most important thing is not how many connectors you have or how good is your sales team or how many articles you publish about how to convert my internal apps. The perfect guide, the top 100 tools. No, the most important is the developer or maker experience. How easy is it? How the learning curve is it? This is why Bubble is investing lately, too lately probably, on this university certification training, because this is the most important. Retool is probably the easiest tool to grasp, for us at least. Finally, let's talk about what will happen in 2027. So if you do the math, it's 5 years. So this is kind of thing when I think the space will grow. So I put the same tools here just to help. We have these more marketing tools and the more business operation tools, right? And then we have SMB and small companies and enterprise and large. So what we see is, as I said, Webflow doesn't go to the enterprise. He will go with logic more on business operation and more on small and medium companies. WeWeb grows towards enterprise. Bubble grows around his base. Airtable would shrink. This is a very bold statement, but I think that in all this landscape of all tools, we have internal database, code, AWS stuff, DynamoDB, and APIs and whatever. And we have front-end, no-code, WeWeb, Retool, whatever. And Airtable is not there. I don't see any reason for Airtable, even now if they have a lot of traction and they are very big. I still think that they are quite fragile in terms of their offer. Finally, the top 5. This is what I think will be the tools of tomorrow. A Retool, Webflow, WeWeb, AppSmith is very, very interesting. Flutterflow too. There are many, many newcomers, but let's be honest. In 5 years, half of the guys we see here will be dead, which is good and bad news. I mean, dead, not physically dead. unless we have a nuclear war, but then we don't need no code anymore. And the flop. So this is where
Is it the moment where I kill Maxime?
Yes, because I put semantics.
Wait, this is the 5 one. It's okay.
Yes, but this is the guys who will be actually shrinking because of those. Again, AppGyver was acquired by SAP. They're already dead. Honeycode, they never existed really. Airtable, they will be shrink. This is where I can hit my head probably because maybe they will grow. Mendix and OutSystems, they are very powerful. They are the #1 no-low-code tools in enterprise. They are the big players. They're since 20 years.
In France.
In France, and you know them. But power ups again. So what you're thinking?
No. The only thing that I see here is that it depends of if it's a number of user of developer in terms of no-code or low-code work, maybe yes. But in terms of like powerful application in big companies, which are like it's a subject, you know. I think like Mendix and OutSystem will be like a big survivor because for Mendix, for example, they are like they belong to Siemens actually, so they are very developing because we are speaking about world, but you have also the industry, you have like the banking, you have the and it's a world which is very powerful. So I think that like for the last tool.
Maybe, yes, we'll see.
But I have no action on Mendix, I think.
No. But my point is why? Because I said developer experience drives the traction. And at some point, if you solve all these security, blah, blah, blah questions, and you are ready to enter the enterprise market, the developer experience of those is not as easy because they just started 20 years ago. That's the problem. This is why Oracle, for example, still exists, but they have to acquire other company to continue to stay afloat. No, but what is that here? I don't want to. They are gold partners. We want to be fearless next year. Anyway, so let's do some prediction, right? So top flop, okay. So now the big guys entering the game. So I see one of those, or maybe two, entering the game of Nocode by acquisition. Obviously, they will not build Nocode. Google tried with AppSheet. I think Google have to compete with Azure, and they pushing so hard in the B2B market now because they are so bad at it. So they will have to acquire somebody there, I think, for sure. Then Adobe is natural. They just acquired Figma. They are very good at integrating company. I think it's the best company in the world that knows how to integrate software. Once they bought it, we saw that with all the previous CQ5, Magento, and the marketing platform, Marketo and stuff. So they can, once they acquired Figma, they digested it. They paid some of the debt. Then they will be ready to acquire somebody after the Figma, because once you connect APIs to Figma or you make this, it's just touching. They can do it. Intuit again, because they're SMB market, and they will be acquiring the winner of the SMB market. So they're waiting for somebody to win, and once somebody won, they acquire it. And SAP, they have this enterprise dominance, total dominance in the enterprise ERP systems, but they are very clunky and difficult to use. They will acquire software and probably making it free, like they did with AppGyver, just to make the layer of presentation better than they have today.
They're supposed to acquire Mendix, but Siemens will. So,
Yeah, but
because in the
maybe it's a
beginning
good
it was like
thing.
it was Mendix.
So now best tools for yes, I already talked about them, bypass. So next, 5 major trends. What will probably happen in this industry? First, enterprise. This is the drive of all software. Everything important happens in the enterprise market. So we can play with startups, but at the end of the journey, the big changes are made by them. So enterprise will be the most important drive for the features for this all the platforms. Marketplace, we will see them everywhere. Everybody who will survive will have a marketplace because nobody can build as many features as the market requires. They will need to have external partners, external software editors building plugins and themes and templates on top of their technology. This is absolutely sure. We saw that the marketplace drives a lot of money for Shopify, for Magento, for WordPress. There's a big ecosystem of IT companies specialized in building plugins and apps. Natively mobile, this is every tool today we have a big split. We have the guys who build mobile apps and the guys who are building web apps. So there will be no distinction. There is no reason that this distinction exists. The natively mobile app will be supported by all tools. AI powered. So we are almost touching today the text to component. Imagine, so why am I saying that? You have this GitHub Copilot, right, who writes code for you, and it's quite performant at some point. So if every application, if you take a retail application, for example, it's just JSON description. So I think there will be some guy at some point taking all this app build, taking this JSON, injecting with GPT-3 OpenAI, and says, I want a component table connected to my data, and it will work. I think it's possible. Another way of thinking that is AI-powered ETL or API connectors. When I can connect my API and put my component, it will be magically connected, and the data split in the right position. I think that's something that's possible, specifically with thousands of apps being built.
This is the EA power. This is the hope I have. Those big companies is that I don't know, but like data science is growing a lot in our company. Low code is like staging, and for me, like the paradise picture of our work is to have like a low code solution just to interfaces communicating with API of AA powered, and it would be perfect.
We'll see. And finally, design to app. This is again a trend we will see at some point. There will be an application that you just design stuff There is no brain that when you design the button, you say this is a button, and then there will be something connected. So Webflow almost does that, but the way the design works, it's more like an HTML builder. You have to build your DOM and CSS, but they will be like the Figma to app will be probably behind other people behind that. We'll see. And finally, the most important conference in 5 years will be, of course, yes, we were waiting that. No, I didn't finish yet. Sorry, why applauding? So yes, was the conference. Thank you for that. So I have a question. Why do we use QWERTY when Colmac, this is a Colmac, is better? Or another question, why all the cars look the same? For example, this is Dodge, this is Lincoln, this is Buick, this is Mercedes, and they all look the same. And the websites too, they all look the same. We have always the same features. But because there's a convergence, because of the pressure of the competition between all different actors, they all try to do a little bit better than the competition. And they all end up with the same perfect car, perfect website, perfect feature. That's why you have this sign in and sign up all on the right top screen and never on the middle of the left on the button. Because we know that all the users and everybody get used that it is here, it's probably better in terms of UX and experience, etc. So, there is an anonymous guy saying that no-code platforms are like operating systems, and there will be few survivors. This is, if you go back in like maybe 20 years, we have Palm OS, we have Symbian, we have a lot of Linux, but at the end today we have Windows and Mac and Linux. So this is exactly what will happen. Do you remember this chart? So there are only, from my point of view again, there are only 4 places here. SMB, marketing, enterprise marketing, SMB, internal tools, and enterprise tools. So if you are not in that circle, and because the no-code platforms require it's very capital extensive. It requires you a lot of money to build, maintain community, features, connectors, plugins, marketplace. That's a lot of money. So there is not enough funding for everybody. So there will be death and survivors. But we already know in this war who will be at least the first survivor. It's Ukraine. But so also what is important, nobody eats software categories entirely. For example, vertical SaaS like Typeform. Why would I use Typeform when I have these type of forms in every single tool? It's an external SaaS. I think they're quite annoyed by the Nocode platform. Business process management. There's a lot of companies doing business for BPM. I think it's very, very similar. So the BPM niche will probably disappear. ETLs, again, we have database API layer, data transformation can be integrated within those tools. So there will probably be some shifting in the technological stack of big companies. And finally, they also have new jobs. So we have this citizen maker builder, right? But when the market will grow and the complexity of the software being built is growing and there is more and more, then there will be some changes. So first, I think that it's like webmasters. We had webmasters. They did webmaster. And this is something that was very popular. Who are you? I'm a webmaster. Okay. So how are you? I'm a maker. Well, today we don't have the webmasters anymore. We have guys who are building software, we guys who are making content, we have influencers, we have front-end developers, back-end. So I think those will disappear. But okay, I see now a new job, query builder. It's somebody who is playing between the REST, JSON, GraphQL, SQL, and connects your software to your backend system. So he knows both the no-code tools, but also the backend systems and APIs and databases. I think we also have a mix between the UX and the front end, because the front end was basically a coder that knows CSS. It's a crazy guy who understands what the CSS is, and nobody else does, because it's not logical. It's not the language, it's something that was created for a reason to kill people. So that's why CSS and UX will be joined here, because when you're building an interface without using CSS, you're actually UX guy who is building interface using a tool. And finally, the UI designer will transform them as a new no-code UI designer, because at some point we will have this Figma Webflow joint venture or acquisition, whatever. So we'll have designers will have to learn new tools. That means that they will have to be rigorous, which is very complicated for designing. And finally, we see a new kind of new job is tools or API sourcer, because you have so many SaaS providers that will provide APIs, and not probably you'll see API first SaaS, for example, with a CRM without frontend, so that it's possible. So that means that we need a guy who will be actually knowing and supervising all these new SaaS and APIs and how they work and stuff. So this is a new job. I can analyze a little bit of product in my mind, a little bit of finance. So I can negotiate. I'm a buyer, but at the same time, I'm a product-oriented guy. And finally, no-code crazy idea. This is absolutely not, it's like 10% chance, but I would love to have those. So the first one, open source app description form. It's like an XML for apps. So you can take an app from Retool and import it in Bubble. I know it's a dream, not possible. Arthur will say, ha ha ha, but I would like to have that. Serverless function integration. Just take your Webflow and write your serverless function and it goes to AWS internet. That would be really cool. Containerization, it's as I said, if you want to go enterprise, it's very complicated to host your app externally. So that I want my Bubble or my whatever tool I use, I download my container and run it internally. Standard data structures. People, citizen makers, they don't have the knowledge of how to structure data, how to design a database, what a product field, what we need, mandatory fields, external keys, how we nest. It's a complicated part, specifically within big industries. So we need standard data structure that you can import to enable, for example, what is a product, what should a customer look like. I think that's something that we could see. Back to the future. I would like to see Flash-like animation, because we've forgotten one of the first no-code tools was Flash, and it did a lot of things. We have games in Flash. Do you see anybody here making games here? No. Can you do an animation with a sticky man fighting with each other? No. We absolutely need that. And finally, automatic responsiveness. I'm fed up with doing like, if I'm in mobile, click mobile, I reduce and then I want to just like, and it works so long, it analyzes my data. I know it's very complicated, it doesn't work everywhere, but it will be really cool. And finally, beautify my UX. I put all my content because developers, they don't know UX, they do very bad things. As soon as I ask developers to do something beautiful, it's usually the reverse. So I want to put my components, connect my logic, and then beautify UX, and it's kind of arrange all my components together in a beautiful way. It's again crazy ideas. And finally, integrated AI assets. So I need, for example, a component that represents a table with 5 columns, and I describe it in a plain language. I don't need the app. I know that's impossible, but at least the component level, I write, I want a table with 5 columns. Bang, done. That's something that's really possible. Please ask them to do that. We are done now. Thank you very much. And you have again free consulting on our booth to ask after.
Just one question about the databases.
Yeah.
Because you killed Airtable.
I killed nobody.
Future.
Yeah.
So I was wondering what could be, your suggested or the database.
A lot of databases. I mean, the databases, you have MongoDB, you have DynamoDB, you have many DBs. The only thing you need is like the old school PHP admin. You have that, right? So you have just a modern PHP admin base role. They are doing a PHP admin on steroids. But basically what you need is a comprehensive tool to create tables, and to create relations and stuff without writing SQL. But by the way, SQL is quite beautiful language, right? So anyway, so I think that just beautiful interface on top of an existing database like Baseball does between models, it's fair enough. Database exists, they work pretty well, they're performant. We don't need to a no-code database. That's nonsense. We already have databases.
Yeah, the databases, but at the same time to be able to use them as CRM,
You can use them
for
whatever.
marketing-
I mean, you can
marketing
database
also.
today. Every single SaaS, every single application, every single guys here are using Bondoux or MongoDB databases or MySQL databases. So they are using the database we've been using 30 years ago, and it's a solved space. It's like you don't need a new I don't know containerization system. It's okay. We have Kubernetes, we have Docker. So there's the same databases. It's solved. We don't touch
So
it.
what's
It
the
works.
problem with Airtable?
Well, Airtable, it's a database that they want to go in the Nocode space. They create forms and workflow and automation. And I think that it will be complicated for them despite their big size because they are not retool, they are not Webflow, they are not AppSmith. They don't have the features of those companies. And they offer APIs, so I can basically take any of this and connect to any database. I don't need Airtable. So that's why I think Airtable as per se is not. But it's a bet. I agree. Yeah.
Is it for the same reason that you didn't even bother mentioning Zapier?
Zapier and Lake, for me, are in the ESB space or integration of things. I
I belong to Nocode.
yeah, they belong to Nocode, absolutely. But but the idea was integration itself is again it's a sold space. You have I don't see many evolution or revolution inside this. I just need to add more connectors, more capabilities in integrating stuff. But again, that's
Because I believe this is one of the could be the sixth jump in the code career.
oh, to automatic
to
integration.
be
Yeah, but I think there will be acquisition again. I think that some big player building apps will acquire kind of connectors. And again, the Zapier stuff, it works pretty well with B2C tools. But when you go to B2B, it's complicated.
Yeah.
Because B2B, you have the millions of rows, and the ESB
We
and
don't
the,
have anything in like I'm working on B2B, so we don't have anything equivalent to Zapier.
and it's A.
no, it's,
Yeah, no, it's not
if you see it in A, and you see Bstock, Microsoft Bstock is in workflow and ESB, so it's fast communication. They have it's tremendously complex because the data, the data quality, the data manipulation is extremely complex piece of work. And I don't see anybody just drawing stuff. They have to write code, you have to clean up checks, and it's a complex space.
So it's still a code pro.
I think everything in the backend will remain code again. Yeah, yes.
That's it.
First, so 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, you did put a slide up about your wish list where it had open source. But in the beginning of your theory where you're saying that, and I agree, that this is startup land, many of these businesses may not be here in 5 years' time. I wonder where open source plays its role. Because when the C-suite, across all businesses outside of technology, when they understand what no code can do, I'm sure they're going to want to do more of it. And their employees are going to want to do more of it. They'll look at their large IT teams and think, well, what do we do with these people? And I think there will be a real drive to pull some of these no-code tools in-house and host, and that has a different dynamic on your prediction.
About what exactly?
Well, so for instance, one of the reasons why it's difficult to go for a knowledge worker to create their own tools to do their work is because IT controls it and they've got all their firewalls and their systems. Now, if there were ways for the knowledge worker to create their tools and bring it in-house easily, and that the IT team would say, yes, that suits, we can run your system because it's all within our control now, that would change the dynamic across enterprise.
I think that it's yes. The problem is that you're focusing on the part of okay, I want to do my small app for my department, and when I asked the IT, they said okay, 3 years, and I need it now, and because they are occupied with very many stuff, and because I'm low priority, it would be better if I could create this kind of tool myself.
Or they say no. There's that.
Or
Or they say no.
No, okay, right. But the problem is, if you open the door, you'll be flooded by 10,000 of guys building their apps everywhere.
This is exactly the reason why, in the beginning, 5 years ago, Allianz Trade decided to adopt the low code. It's what we call the shadow IT. The problem is that in the beginning there was like multiple application in a different language, in open source, but at the end you have to first of all have a governance, have a security filter, and like to update those systems and to support those systems. It's impossible. This is the problem.
But isn't this, sorry to just push on this, isn't this the promise of no code? That it actually enables and democratizes creation of software
I don't buy it. I don't buy this promise. Why did it that? It's because of the VCs. When they go to see a VC, give me 100 million. They say, what for? Well, maybe I will build something when I will sell to IT director of Coca-Cola. People don't buy it. Nobody likes it. It's a very slow sales cycle. They want quick money for their LPs. So they say, okay, well, everybody will be making apps. This is citizen developers. Oh, okay, I buy it, give you 100 million. But now they have to stick to their marketing. But I don't buy this thing, because as soon as you get complex enterprise level apps, even very simple like HR management, whatever, it brings a lot of questions about governance, security, APIs, blah, 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 data security, engineering, that a citizen developer cannot handle, because they just don't have the experience and knowledge. That's why I think that this is bullshit. But again, I am a developer, so wait, because we had a question.
Where do you put Notion in your program?
Notion, I love Notion so much, but at some point we have a limited size of the screen, and why not Aircall?
Because Notion is like 10 billion valuation.
Yeah,
so
Notion is absolutely game changer, and they are very good. And they do everything. It's like Wikipedia and Google Sheets and Google Docs and back end everything. But they're absolutely amazing. I love them. But in the enterprise market, maybe not.
Thanks for the presentation. Just maybe I missed a part of the presentation. But what is your point of view about Power Apps? I know that you don't have so much place on the screen.
First, I didn't use myself Power Up that much, so I don't know them. Well, from what I heard is that if you go beyond 2 users, Power Apps may be a little bit more complicated. The second thing is that Power Apps exist only when you have everything from Microsoft. There's no reason Power Apps without Microsoft. I don't see any reason. It's a powerful tool. It's on the level of, maybe not on the level of Mendix and OutSystems, but it's a powerful tool. But it's grown inside Microsoft, gigantic everything they do. So per se, they are very good complement thing for everybody using SharePoint, SQL Server, Microsoft Dynamics and stuff.
It's on the Microsoft world. I used sometimes Power Apps, but the problem is that if you are inside the environment of Microsoft and the data, it's okay. If you want to go outside to maybe use some general API which are outside of this world, it's more complicated.
It's because everybody doesn't know OData. You have GraphQL and REST, but they created their own GraphQL, which is OData, okay? But that's an example. So they are very, very Microsoft level. So I don't see them dominate outside. Yeah.
I missed the beginning of the presentation too, but how are you positioned on the on-premise side of things? Because I work at, for example, at EDF, Veolia, like big company, they are very strict with their data. And now they can't work with Bubble, etc. because they don't want the data to leave.
Exactly what I was saying, because it depends. Well, first it depends. First, many like Mendix, they can offer you Docker that
It's so expensive, but it's so expensive.
Yes.
Even for a company like that, I compare because we have the SaaS solution of Mendix. If you want to be like on-premise, it means that you need to have a team for Kubernetes to be like very specialized and all the things that it's very expensive to be on-premise.
But if you work for EDF, it's okay because God's raising now. No, the thing is, first you have tools that are not providing databases. If you have Retool, AppSmith, WeWeb, and many others, they are front-end only, so no problem. Second, many of them are also either open source, either can be run internally, like Retool, or for example, Menzies, you can run them in a container inside, so no problem.
But you have other solution, for example, for like a big project inside of us, we have like the application of Mendix, and we developed a special secularized canal of communication to go directly on our database. So it's like maybe not also quickest in terms of a query, but it's a very secure solution. We have the database inside our IT, and we have like the interface outside in Mendix.
So yeah, and this is the point. So this is why Babel will probably not integrate enterprise management as the okay.
Last question.
Okay, you
Go ahead.
it's okay.
Yeah, just a small comment because coming from a developer context, we deploy internal developer platforms inside big organizations to enable innovations and create shadow IT, etc. Why Nocode couldn't have an internal Nocode platform, for instance?
Yes, it will be. This is what I say.
Maybe.
Retool have this query resource. If you go to Retool and you create an app, you will see query library, resource library, modules library, which is today internal to your own something, but you can absolutely create that internally.
Yeah.
That's absolutely the case.
But for me, it's not happy. I mean, like always, you want to recreate the no-code solution inside your company. You have to be open because it's not a question about our company, because we know that in terms of like economic way, the powerful thing is to communicate with our partner, our external services, external partner, and for that we need to have like some standards. So if I work on Mendix and I can communicate with one system, because like doing the same communication same way, it would be more powerful. And if I need to have 300 people who are working on our internal no-code solution, I can't.
I think it's coming.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, and the last.
I'm from Abstract Disclaimer. But thanks for adding us on the slide. But the question was about.
You paid me $100 for that.
I still need to give it. Around developer experience. So your predictions, I love those. How do you think open source plays in that realm, or how can it influence the outcomes?
It's like always. Look, where we have open source, it's operating system for servers, databases. Languages, they're all open source, right? Why they are Drupal open source, WordPress open source? Why they are open source? Because the product by themselves doesn't provide any value. If you install a WordPress, there is no value. What starts to bring the value when you install a Drupal, it's empty. You don't have to install a lot of models and the content types and views and stuff, right? So there is the value is created around either by hosting, support, or by service company agencies creating stuff using the open source. This is why you don't have an open source version of Adobe or Vim. This is why you don't have an open source version of, let's say, Word. You have LibreOffice, you have OpenOffice, but honestly, nobody uses it. So, because if you have your product is entirely fulfilling somebody's need, like Euler, for example, the best product to create user analysis and user click points.
And you don't pay him for that.
No, not yet. That's the problem. And this is, they solve one single problem entirely. Their product solve the problem. CRM. There is no open source place because there is no customization. There are no services around that. Why? If a product solves the problem, no open source. So in no-code, low-code, that's a big change, because I think that in no-code, low-code, the platform itself doesn't solve any issue. Only when you start building around it, it starts to provide you value. So yes, I think the open source inside this no-code have a lot of place, and we'll see how you guys perform, how maybe somebody else will also release an open source base role, and you guys are very good companies. We are really eager to